hit the like button for some good luck for NIO stock. Jesus Christ. Earnings are out. And guys, this is going to be my honest opinion and my honest analysis of the whole thing. We're going to start off on a good note and also end in a good note, but there's going to be a lot of really criticizing stuff in the middle. And guys, if you can't handle that kind of criticism, please click away. When you're in pain, you go to the doctor. Do you want the doctor to tell you the truth, what's happening, or do you want the doctor to smile at you and say, hey, everything's going fine? I think the truth is more important than just brushing everything off. So this is your warning. Of course, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Sub-brand NIO owners here in China. What is their big misstep? How the landscape has shifted, and why the NIO's former head of product actually said NIO should kill off the sub-brand. So let's quickly recap some of the highlights of this earnings report. Total revenues in the fourth quarter of 2022, US $2.3 billion, which is very nice, increase of 62.2% from the fourth quarter of 2021. So I was expecting an increase of 70% if you've seen my previous video about earnings, what to expect. The biggest shocker for everybody was probably the losses. Yeah. Net loss in the fourth quarter of 2022 was $838.9 million US dollars, an increase of 169.9% from the fourth quarter of 2021. Now, this is what the chart looks like, the graph. Yeah, this is in RMB, of course, 100 million RMB. And yeah, revenue increasing steadily, but ever since Q1 of this year, the losses have just been growing and growing and growing and growing, bigger and bigger and bigger losses. I personally was expecting this trend to end at Q3, all right? And Q4, we actually see losses be less than Q3 because, you know, you got more vehicle sales, etc. There was still the EV subsidy, and overall, in general, lots of cars were being delivered. But of course, that was not the case. We'll come back to losses in a bit, all right? First, we got to talk about the R&D expenses. R&D expenses, $577.1 million for the fourth quarter of 2022. In my honest opinion, they should be spending more on R&D actually, because we need to face the facts here, guys. We deal in facts. And one really big disappointment that a lot of NIO owners, even here in China, have expressed is that, you know, NIO's ET7, the whole entire NT 2.0 platform, was announced on NIO Day 2020, which was in early 2021. So NIO was one of the first guys to announce LiDAR on their cars. That was only a couple months after I took delivery of my EC6. Very exciting. And of course, that was also when NIO stock peaked at its highest. You know, the tech, they were first to introduce this tech. But how about implementation? Well, if you guys know, what's actually going on with implementation is auto lane change, NOP Plus, has just entered beta in 2023. So just recently, in beta software, they got auto lane change for NT 2.0 cars, which is a huge disappointment in my opinion, because all the other guys like Li Auto and the other guys, Xpeng, these guys were looking at NIO's LiDAR when they announced it, and they were able to implement it faster than NIO and get it working faster than NIO. The software side of things has really been NIO's Achilles heel. And NIO owners in China, the actual NIO owners, are expressing their frustration. They got this piece of hardware on top of the car that they pay for that can't do what it's promised to do. The other thing I got to talk about R&D is that NIO should really focus on giving the customer what they want. A lot of NIO owners, even the founding NIO owners, these guys are the first guys to buy a NIO back in 2018 when you guys didn't even know about the brand. They put their trust and money into NIO before the car even had Wi-Fi, before the car even had internet. A lot of these guys are upset with NIO and their lack of ability to listen to what the customers actually need. For example, one clear case is the new ES8. NIO did not know that a lot of people use their NIO for cargo purposes, for storage purposes. The NIO owner with 23 NIOs, he said he was hesitant to get a new get the new ES8 because there was no 7-seater version. The seats couldn't fold down. You can't put storage. You can't put stuff inside. And also a lot of NIO owners have expressed their want for a second screen on the car, whether it's in the back or in the passenger seat. And we understand that NIO's core value is minimalism. But is this core value worth dying for? Is this core value worth losing customers for? Because this picture was posted and shared by a NIO owner. Founding NIO owner showed, his experience while sitting in the passenger seat of the car when his driver was driving the car. Obviously, he's a boss, right? He's a boss. He has his own personal driver, and he's in the passenger seat. He wants some entertainment. Would it be the end of the world if NIO added a second screen? Is NIO, this is the very important question, is NIO not boss enough, aka not for the bosses, to have this second screen? Or is NIO not for the bosses? Because all the bosses, they have drivers, and then the boss themselves either sits in the back or the passenger seat. They want some entertainment. They have to use their freaking phone with a phone attachment. Give customers what they want instead of sticking to your morals and your core values and losing customers and forcing people to ditch the brand. And the landscape has completely shifted in terms of the customers here in China. I know you guys over there in the US and Europe, you're still talking about tech and all that kind of stuff. But here, customers are no longer talking about tech because tech, like what William Lee said, is pretty much homogenous. Lots of people have LiDAR, right? And those guys got it working. Lots of people have high performance motors. Other guys have battery swap as well. The battlefield right now isn't about tech. What are people comparing? Headroom, comfort. If you drive in your NIO and your back hurts after 4 hours of driving, these guys are gonna buy something else. If you sit in an ET7 and then your right side view, 70% of your right side view is obstructed by that rear view mirror and that whole entire camera module, that's a deal breaker for people. Understand what customers need. Customers here in China are no longer comparing tech. They're comparing comfort and all this kind of stuff, screens and that kind of stuff. I know you guys think it's bullshit, but that's the way it is. And China is still your primary market. You're talking about EU expansion, but you think about this. Germany's population is about the same population as one province in China. Are you gonna sell more in EU or sell more in China? Of course you're gonna sell more in China. And even NIO themselves, they came out with guidance for the EU expansion side. Europe, they're aiming for 10,000 vehicles for the entire year. So it's very important to listen to what the Chinese customers want and need, satisfy those needs. Otherwise, customers are just gonna go to different brands. And I have a very good example and a very good story about this. I know this video is gonna get long, but please stick with me. It's not over, I just got started. So a friend of mine wanted to buy a NIO, an ET7. She was looking around, she test drove the vehicle, she was very excited, very interested. At the end of the day, after all the convincing and everything, she ended up buying a Tesla. She stated she understands NIO's incredible service. It's very top-notch, very good. She understands battery swap, how good it is. It's very nice. But she's buying a Tesla for its better software, cheaper price, and more headroom. What the hell? I know. Okay, so we're going to tie this battery swap thing that I'm going to talk about along with killing off the sub-brand, which NIO's head of product, former head of product, said NIO must kill off the sub-brand. But of course, it's too late to do that. But here's why. Do you see BMW coming up with a sub-brand for their BMW X1 or X2? If BMW did that, the X1 and X2 would see much lower sales than if it was with the BMW brand. Do you see Tesla coming up with a sub-brand to sell the Model 3 and Model Y? No, NIO already has brand value and desirability. According to NIO's head of product, NIO is going to sell a ton more of this whatever car that they're going to come out with if it was under the NIO brand, but just be like ET3 or ES3 or something like that, and they would sell much more of this instead of coming up with a new brand that nobody knows about. They have to spend more training and teaching people about brand recognition. People going to stores, they don't know what brand this is. People will be hesitant to buy the car. If it's a NIO ET3, oh, people already know the NIO brand. All right, oh my God, that's a very cheap entry-level car. We're gonna go with that. And also the whole thing with the sub-brand also being able to do swaps. I think this is a very nice competitive advantage. I was worried that the sub-brand would not have a competitive advantage. It's very nice in the sense that it's only compatible with 3.0 swap stations. That means 1.0 swap stations and 2.0 swap stations, you're not going to see big lineups, which already happen. You know, sometimes these lineups get pretty insane for battery swap. But if this car can do battery swap, why not just launch it under the NIO brand and then make battery swaps paid for? This is the biggest point that I want to make. Make people pay for battery swaps on the cheaper variant of the cars. The new ET5 right now, they shouldn't have the same amount of free swaps per month as the ES8. They're paying double the price for the new ES8, and then you still get the same amount of free swaps per month. The ET5 should totally only have like 2 or 3 max free swaps per month because it completely makes no business sense. And if they were to have the sub-brand car, whatever it is, as an ET3, make it have no free swaps, right? You gotta pay for swaps. That way, the swap stations can actually earn some money. Because guys, you think free battery swap is grandfathered in. It's not grandfathered in. They're losing so much money. They're swapping every day. NIO loses about 5 million per day on free battery swaps. Let that sink in. RMB, all right, RMB. So that's about almost 1 million US dollars per day just giving out free swaps. Every single NIO sold here in China gets 6 free battery swaps per month, or 4 if they install the home charger. So imagine if you have a big bucket, and this is NIO's whole entire cash pile, right? It's in this big bucket, and cash is going to be water in this analogy. Selling a car would be like scooping a cup of water and pouring it into this whole entire barrel. But at the same time, you take a needle and you poke the tiny little hole, tiny minute little hole at the bottom of the barrel. 6 free swaps per month forever. And even during NIO Day, William Li himself boasted about how a NIO owner swapped so much free swaps that he recouped a BMW X3 worth of free swaps. So the free swaps that NIO provided this guy is enough money to buy a BMW X3. And he talked about this during NIO Day. You guys can go watch it if you don't believe me, which is absolutely insane. So they need to start cutting this off. And people think it's grandfathered in. It's not grandfathered in at all because free battery swap sticks with the customer and not the car. Tesla has free supercharging for a lot of these first buyers, right? But that's for the car. If they sell the car, they buy a new Tesla, it's gone. There's no more free supercharging. NIO, it's different. If I buy a new NIO today, that car is gonna get free battery swap. And I can transfer my free battery swap to that car. So every single NIO owner right now, 6 free swaps per month. If they buy a new NIO 5 years later, 3 years later, however many later, they can still get that free battery swap. It's gonna be consistent. The cash burn is not going to end unless, you know, for example, one of these NIO owners, they decide to buy a new brand. It's very good as a NIO owner to have not worry about battery degradation, but battery degradation is something for the shareholders to worry about now, right? For Tesla, right, there's battery degradation. The customer has to deal with that. It's got nothing to do with Tesla. NIO, the customer has nothing to do with battery degradation. It's all NIO's problem. And you can imagine how this will potentially become a gradually bigger and bigger problem. And people, the misconception here is that people think it's covered by BAS. Guys, understand this. In Europe, only BAS vehicles have free battery swap. Here in China, everybody has free battery swap. And also, BAS revenue does not go to NIO, it goes to Weineng. NIO gets paid upfront when a customer buys a car. Here in China, even if it's under BAS, Weineng pays the money to NIO for that battery. And even though you guys think, oh, Weineng owes the battery, they got to deal with the battery degradation problem. No, it's still NIO's problem to deal with because you're constantly swapping this system. My BAS battery, my rented battery, right, could be on some other NIO owner's car, and their car could have a bot battery. You understand what I mean? The whole battery swap system means It's all NIO's problem to deal with. They're spending money to burn more money. I highly recommend you watch my video, especially 19-minute mark with Magic MX. This guy sells 22 NIOs a day at those auto shows. He's also the guy that referred me to the company. Without him, I would probably bought a Tesla. But I did this interview with him, and at the 19-minute mark of this video, he talked about how each swap station is probably going to burn about $1 million RMB per year just from free battery swaps. That's almost like 200,000 US dollars. And the cost to build a swap station around 200,000 US dollars. You know, NIO right now is spending money to build swap stations to burn more money for free battery swaps. Of course, this worked in 2021 and 2022 to some extent. In 2020, it worked really well because it was NIO's competitive moat. You know, people would buy a NIO for the free battery swap, and that's also why I bought my NIO. And when I heard that unlimited free battery swap was coming to an end and it was going to turn into 6 free swaps per month, I pulled the trigger right away. But now everybody still has 6 free swaps per month, and even if you buy a NIO today, it's still 6 free swaps per month. That is a huge burden. People think that battery swap stations are an asset. It's a huge cash burning liability until NIO comes out with the cheaper cars that has to pay for swap. And NIO absolutely needs to do that. Don't do some sub-brand, waste money on sub-brand, waste money on phone, waste money on headphone, waste money on all this kind of stuff. A sub-brand and a sub-brand. Why are you wasting so much money? Just stick with the whole entire NIO brand. BMW has X1 and BMW has X7 in. There's nothing wrong with that. Similarly, NIO should have, you know, the ES7, but also the ES3 or ES2, ES1. There's nothing wrong with that. Let those guys pay for swaps. And also, of course, NIO's done a lot of stuff to disappoint NIO owners right now in China. Like the price cuts is one thing, but also one really disappointing thing that they've done is to give out NIO Pilot for 2 days. You know, everybody that bought a NIO, especially the 1.0 cars, of course, it's a smart move business-wise. You know, you think, hey, there's no extra money spent, and you're moving cars out. It's a very good way to offer a sort of a cheap discount. But NIO did not think about all the NIO owners that they would piss off and all the backlash that they would get, especially for the guys that paid full price for it. What NIO should have done is offer a free trial for 1 year or maybe even max 2 years. That way, you're not going to piss off the existing NIO owners. And also, after that duration, people might actually like NIO Pilot and actually pay for it, and you might actually get more revenue. And right now, NIO owners are pissed off to an extent, and this isn't an exaggeration. It's actuality. If you scroll in the NIO app, you can't see these posts. And a lot of these pissed off guys are the founding NIO owners that referred a lot of customers, referred a lot of friends to buy a NIO, and told a lot of friends and family to buy a NIO. And they're in the heat because now all of a sudden, you know, they were told no price cuts, they're going to protect the interest of customers. But then at the end of the day, it wasn't upheld. And then these guys are now scared to promote the brand. So these NIO user volunteers, and you guys also heard in the conference call how important they are. A lot of these NIO user volunteers actually know more than the sales reps, because the sales reps, it's just a job for them. For NIO user volunteers, these guys treat this as a brotherhood. It's like helping a brother out or helping a family member out. That's why Magic MX could sell 22 NIOs in a single day at the auto expos. I want to end this video on a good note. I know I've been ranting quite a lot. One good thing that you can take away from the earnings conference call is the fact that he talked about how in a small town with only 50,000 people, 500 of the people were actually NIO owners. And it was all because they had one swap station there, and it was a networking thing. And you can clearly see how recommendations and networking really works out to NIO's benefit as long as they don't backstab them. So NIO has, of course, shifted some of their priority to offer swap stations at these third-tier cities and fourth-tier cities and fifth-tier cities, which I think is very, very smart and important to do, because these cities also have a lot of rich people, rich folks. My wife's hometown, Fuzhou, the real estate there is super expensive. The people there are rich as hell. NIO doesn't even have a NIO house there. They only have 2 NIO spaces and 3 swap stations. I mean, like, what the hell? I messaged the general manager over there. I'm just like, come on, we gotta add more stuff over there. Gotta get more swap stations over there. You don't even have a NIO house. And then NIO house, cash burn, NIO space, cash burn. I think NIO house, people are arguing, hey, it's vacant most of the time. Yes, it could be vacant sometimes. I shared footage of what it looks like when it's vacant. Yes, it is a cash burn, but at the end of the day, these are still stores and people still come in to check out the cars. They still buy the car from those stores. So it still has its purpose and it's not just pure cash burn. So I think you should definitely still keep NIO houses, but battery swaps, you got to figure out a way to cut that off and make it more fair, because the ES8 still gets 6 free swaps per month. Why is the ET5 getting 6 free swaps per month? That should be totally just 3 or 2 or maybe even 1 or none at all. Like NIO's former head of product said, kill off the sub-brand, man. You don't need the sub-brand. NIO is going to do much better if they launch that car in the main brand. This is just my rant, and you guys can disagree with it, you guys can agree with it, and not financial advice either. Just sharing what's happening and the emotions that are built up by NIO owners here in China. If you watched over here, you guys are awesome. Love you guys. 5,000. Stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.